So we got 2 chapters of Fairy Tail this week. I ain't gonna lie. They were hype as shit. They were dope. They were just like, this is how I wish Fairy Tail would be more often, because so for starters, pretty much the Natsu versus Zeref fight continues, and Mavis shows up. The one thing you would argue is, hey, it's a mistake, why is she doing this? Essentially what happens afterward is she fucks everyone over in a way by, not allowing, but pretty much because of her presence, Zeref gets a hold of Fairy Heart. But to Mavis's credit, she felt as though, and she's a tactician, so I'm sure she thought of, hey, if I show up and I tell Zeref, yo, I think I got an answer to what you've been trying to do this entire time. You want to die, right? I can help you. Also, the fact that she still to this day has feelings for him, it kind of made sense of why she would show up. She figured maybe, I can use one of the things, the catalyst to a lot of his despair in a sense, or a great majority of it. Obviously, he was already in despair when he met Mavis, but nevertheless, she felt as though she could use that as an opportunity to put an end to all of this. So you can't knock her giving one last shot, especially the fact that she's one of the most strongest that they have at this point, right? Because of the fairy heart that she has. But Zeref, Zeref. Honestly, I ain't gonna lie, that shit was hype as hell. Him taking the fairy heart and him just, oh my gosh, when Natsu thought he was coming through with a blow, it ain't do nothing to him. Well, it did something to him, but it didn't matter at that point because of fairy heart. I was like, damn, just damn. The design, it was just hype as fuck. Like, these 2 chapters, I gotta stress again that Mashima brought his pen game. I don't know where he be leaving it sometimes, but he brought it, and yeah. It is interesting to note, and I do gotta mention this. It feels as though when you look at Acnologia and you look at Zeref, the 2 major villains of the entire story of Fairy Tail, right? It feels as though, to a certain degree, they have interesting methods, but ultimately they're still trying to do some good for the world. Because if you look at this chapter, for example, Acnologia just keeps stressing that he gotta get rid of all the dragons. He gotta do it. He gotta get rid of them and shit like that. So it's like, is he trying in his own twisted way to protect humanity? Or is it just that he wants to be King Ding, King Dingaling up in this motherfucker, and that's why he wants to get rid of anybody that could potentially be a threat to him? But it does seem as though you could argue maybe that's what, what he wants. But then again, you got to think, well, in that other timeline when all the dragons broke free, why didn't Acnologia do anything to them? Why did he just reign supreme? So it makes you kind of question him and exactly what is his motives. But it does seem as though there's a possibility that the reason he's trying to kill the Dragon Slayers is he wants to make sure there's no more dragons. I mean, he is a dragon himself, but maybe he excludes himself from the equation because he feels as though he's the one person that can kind of restore order and ultimately make sure that the world doesn't go, in a disarray and war and shit like that. There's a possibility there. And then you look at Zeref and his goal, basically. Well, one of them is, the motherfucker wants to die. And if he can't die, then he just wants to reset everything and make sure that he stops all the catastrophes that's going to happen in the world. So even Zeref, to a certain degree, is like, yeah, they're both villains. Yeah, they do some fucked up things. They will kill a motherfucker. But they ultimately there's a method to the madness, if you see what I'm saying. So it feels as though, like, both of them is kind of, you can argue, which is why I'm really hoping that Anna, or, that person that put the curse on Zeref to begin with, could be the true final villain. Maybe I'm grasping at straws here, but it was interesting to note that in this chapter, Acnologia is continuing on, yeah, I want to get rid of the dragons. I got to get rid of them. So interesting stuff there. Then we had, and by the way, I'm just, clumping all the events together because I can't remember which happened in what chapter, but we have Lucy essentially trying to rewrite the book, which is what a lot of people was guessing, and that is a smart thing to do. I mean, granted, when you opened up the book, it was still a little bit, maybe you should have got some advice, but nevertheless, if she gets rid of, because seemingly there's a bonding magic between the book and Natsu, if she gets rid of, that magic in particular and rewrites it, then maybe it could set Natsu free. Or it could go bad if you think about it. What if that's the only reason why he's alive, and that bonding magic, bonding him to that book, is what's keeping him going? You get rid of that bond, and what's going to keep him alive? So that's an interesting thing there. I think what she's trying to do is strategic and smart as well, and it could be very helpful. But also, how the fuck are you going to rewrite anything? Like, you can't even barely read what's going on those pages. So that's going to be interesting to see how it turns out. I mean, I guess in the end, it's actually turning into a good thing, the fact that she opened up the book, but it still seems a little messy, and I think that they should, at the very least, reach out to somebody that is a lot more knowledgeable than these three guys to, hey, you want to help us out and decide if we should do this? But talking about Zeref and Mavis again for a minute, it seems as though, like, you know, there really was some real love in there. I mean, for starters, Zeref became even 10 times more evil and fucked up because of Mavis's passing, but you could definitely see with Mavis pleading to him and even saying, yo, please don't reset time because you'll completely get rid of the moment that we met. You can see that there's still love there. I feel as though in a different setting and a different, you know, circumstance, they could have been together and been happy, because you really see that at the end of the day, they both legitimately care for one another. It's just Zeref is pulling one of those, like, yo, at the end of the day, I gotta do for me, and I can't think about this no more. And I mean, he already lost her once, so he's probably thinking that, fuck that shit. And in another timeline, who knows, maybe I can meet her again, you never know. And it also goes back to the fact that Zeref isn't completely bad, because he's even talking about, when I go back in time, me and Natsu will for sure this time make sure we take down Acnologia and do everything right. So again, it almost makes you feel as though he's fucked up and what he's doing is morally wrong in a sense, but at the same time, he's not really. Like, he has a great solution, well, great solution in hindsight. So it's kind of like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's similar to, like, you know, you go to Naruto and Madara and Obito, they're just trying to make sure everybody lives peacefully for the rest of their lives. They're just in an illusion, right? Well, Zeref is trying to do something similar in a sense. He's trying to wipe out what is reality right now and go into a new reality. So it's kind of like, yeah, you're a piece of shit, but I get what you're trying to do. Something real quick to mention is, it seems as though in this chapter, which kind of makes me question things, is Mavis knew seemingly about August and her having a child with Zeref or whatnot. I mean, it seems as though it was hinting that route. I'm kind of curious if she did know, why didn't she like step in at some given point and actually meet August? That was something that was kind of like, you seemingly might have known that you had a son, or potentially there could have been a son. Why didn't you? I don't know. In these chapters, it felt as though a little bit like, but I ain't gonna lie. The star part of the chapter was Zeref, and what is making me come into this review like, yo, this was nasty. This was nasty as fuck when Zeref takes the hit from Natsu and is like, he comes back or whatever, fucking beats Natsu's ass essentially, you know, just gives him that fucking uppercut to the gut, and ultimately says, because Natsu's like, hey, you know, I fucked up the guild again, I gotta fucking say sorry to Makarov. And then he gives him, not only does he fuck him up, destroying his pride as, you know, just like, hey, you still can't take me, but then he throws the bombshell. Oh, don't apologize to Makarov, he's dead already, don't worry, you'll see him in heaven. I was like, yes, this is the viciousness and the savagery that Fairy Tail has been lacking and needing so badly. Because essentially, you think about it, one of the things that the haters always say, or not even the haters, the realists say about Fairy Tail is, yo, the good guys always win. What the hell is that? Zeref knocked his ass the fuck out, so I gotta do nothing but... Zeref, you did it, bro. You made a fucking amazing chapter. What'll happen afterwards, who the hell knows? But I gotta speak for these two chapters and all the build up and lead up to the climax of these two chapters, with Zeref with the fairy heart basically having the capabilities. Now what? All he has to do is retrieve that ball, the time-lapse ball, and then he can carry out his plans, right, and reset everything, which I highly doubt is going to happen. I mean, it would be interesting, and it'd be a whole other mindfuck if we did get a little bit of a reset and see how things played out, and then ultimately something happens to bring us back to this timeline, but I doubt it's going to even go that far. And ultimately, Zeref just was an absolute badass, amazing way to end the chapters, honestly. Combining them together, not giving individual scores just because, you know, we got them at the same time, I gotta say these were damn near great chapters. I mean, you could argue about Mavis, why the fuck would you show up to begin with? You gave him an opening to get Fairy Heart, she did have a plan, she was ultimately trying to play on the fact that we had history together, why would you want to destroy it? I think she underestimated the fact that Zeref is just, he doesn't give a fuck, he doesn't care no more, he figures he'll have new happiness in his other life. So it was like, you underestimated him. But just especially that ending though, the build up to it, and the ending, Natsu trying to give everything he got with the Dragon Force mixed with seemingly him being dragonized, and Fairy Heart Zeref was like amazing shit. Great way to end the two chapters. Honestly, I gotta say these chapters as a whole, 8.5 to a 9. I kind of want to lean on the 9 because this was great shit for Fairy Tail. 2 weeks in a row, 3 chapters, really good shit. Hopefully Hero can keep it up. I'm not going to hold my breath because we've been through this too many times, but at the very least I can say this week, these 2 chapters of Fairy Tail, absolute bombshell. Loved them. But of course, I'm curious what you guys thought of these 2 chapters. Did you feel as though they were as great as I felt? What did you think about Zeref giving Natsu the fucking KO and them words at the end? What did you think about ultimately him getting the fairy heart and what Mavis did? Again, it's a blunder and it's kind of like, but I totally get it. It wasn't just complete BS. It was just kind of like, Mavis tried. She didn't realize Zeref is that fucking low at this point. And what do you think about Lucy's plan to rewrite stuff in the book and get rid of that spell that connects Natsu to the book? You think it'll do some good or it'll ultimately hurt? And your overall thoughts of these 2 chapters? Again, I gotta give it up. Fairy Tail this week brought it, and I wish it would be like this all the time because then Fairy Tail will be on some whole other level. But that's all I have for this one. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and stalk my Facebook to get more when the video ends. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.